Fast and Loud, while it lasted, was one of the most important TV shows about muscle cars in the world.
All right.
That deal?
Hell yeah.
All right, man.
I'll take it, man. We bought this thing for 300 grand and I just turned it around for 4. Whoa! My beer assistant's gonna have to up his game.
The show lasted for approximately 10 years, and in that time the show went through 16 seasons and about 170 episodes. It was hosted on Discovery Channel for the duration of its life, and it drew in millions of viewers. However, in 2021, the show abruptly came to an end. A lot of the fans of the show were extremely disappointed for several reasons, but the main reasons were because they didn't know why the show ended and were sad to see it go. The reason for the show's ending was an enigma, as Discovery never really came out to give a real reason for ending the show. Join us as today we're going to be digging deep and finding out the real reason why Fast and Loud ended. In December 2020, Joe Rogan had Richard Rawlings, the star man of the Fast and Loud show, on, and Richard dropped a bombshell. The bombshell was simple. He was out of the Discovery Channel, and there would no longer be any new episodes of Fast and Loud.
Everybody hold on to your hat out there. Fast and Loud is no more. I have exited Discovery, and I'm a free agent.
That announcement took even Joe Rogan by surprise, as he was only hearing about it for the first time. In fact, most people were just hearing about the cancellation of the show for the first time on that podcast. It was a shocking end to a show that had started, at the time, around 8 years prior. The first episode of the show aired on Discovery in June 2012. After that first successful episode, the show went on to have 16 seasons, more than 150 episodes, and 8 years of success. Up until that point in the podcast, people had expected that Rawlings would be back with the 17th season soon, but as Richard confirmed, that would certainly not be the case. At first, it was kind of confusing to understand the state of the show. Rawlings first said that he'd left Discovery and was no longer signed to the company. While that was a direct statement, it still left some ambiguity as to whether the show was still on or not. Yes, it would be strange to watch Fast and Loud without Rawlings, but that could still be done, right? We mean, TV shows have changed their main characters over the years with minimal fuss. For example, the showrunners of Game of Thrones changed both the actors of the Night King and Dario Naharis. Was that an option for Discovery? Apparently not, and it's easy to see why. Rawlings was the main character, and perhaps the only character of Fast and Loud. Trying to continue the show without Rawlings would kind of be like trying to shoot Keeping Up with the Kardashians without the Kardashians, or shooting Top Gear without Jeremy Clarkson. Oh, wait, that actually happened. Anyway, it seems that Discovery was very unwilling to go ahead with plans for the show without Rawlings being present. It seems like Rawlings was really the brain behind the entire show, and without him, the show simply couldn't go on. So once he left Discovery and became a free agent, it followed that the show would also come to an end. And that leads us to an interesting question. Why did Rawlings leave Discovery? Was there any animosity between both parties? Did his contract just run down and they refused to sign another one? On the podcast, Joe Rogan tried to get the answer to this question out of Rawlings, and that's when things got pretty spicy. At first, Rawlings said that he left Discovery to broaden his horizons, take a step back, and move in a different direction in his life. That sounds like standard stuff, right? A lot of people, especially entertainers, don't want to work on one project for too long. After a while, they tend to get bored and decide to move on to better things, and that seems like what happened with Rawlings here. He's been contracted with Discovery for the better half of a decade, and it's only logical if he wants to move past that and go into doing other things for himself. To any sane person, that doesn't sound bad. Everyone understands the call for adventure and what it does to people, and Rawlings is still relatively young. He can still have a hot show doing other things. It's only sensible for him to try to explore other aspects of the industry. However, during the interview, we started to get the vibe that that wasn't the whole story. For one, Rawlings said that when he signed his contract with Discovery at the beginning of the show, he signed over everything. That's right, he signed over every right he had to every media he can access. And yes, that includes social media.
Yeah.
So I signed off on all media. So up to this point, until literally,
all media, including social media?
It wasn't even social media back then. I mean, what is it, like MySpace or something?
That means that he couldn't take a basic picture of a truck and post it on his Instagram without his entire camera crew and everything being there. 10 years ago, when social media wasn't really that big, that might have been something irrelevant. We mean, sure, people had Facebook, but it wasn't something so intrinsic to your life. You really just used it to catch up with old friends from school or laugh at cat memes that your buddy from college shared. According to Rawlings, that's why he did it. He thought social media was irrelevant. But as the years went by and social media took on greater importance, it started to look like a terrible decision. And Rogan told Rawlings that too.
But that's ridiculous, but that would just boost up your social media, which would boost up the show.
You would think so. You would think that would be the thought.
It appears that Rawlings accepted that it was a terrible decision because he mentioned that he used to beg Discovery to give him those rights back. However, they refused. Another flashpoint that showed us that the story between Discovery and Rawlings might not be that clean cut was that Rogan asked Rawlings to talk a bit about the relationship he had with the suits at Discovery.
Walk me through a conversation with one of these knuckleheads.
I can't.
Well, a fake conversation, pretend.
I can't.
Rawlings was obviously very unwilling to give out that information. After Rogan pressed him for a while, he finally said there was a clause in his contract that prevented him from talking about his time at Discovery.
So the answer is, there's a piece of the contract when I exited.
Oh, that you can't talk shit.
That I can't talk. It's up to a $25,000 fine per occurrence.
Occurrence of you talking shit?
Of me talking shit.
In fact, there was a $25,000 penalty for every time it happened. Now, we don't know exactly how rich Rawlings is or how much Discovery paid him, but we are pretty sure that he doesn't think it's clever to badmouth Discovery and then pay $25,000 every time he does it. And that's actually pretty smart. If you own a company and don't want former employees to dent your reputation in the press, slap a clause like that on their contracts and you'd be safe. However, this contract clause got us thinking. Would Discovery slap that clause on his contract if they didn't have any grouse with Rawlings? The answer is probably not. Sadly, Rawlings is unwilling to go into the whole story and talk about his experiences at Discovery. It just seems like an expensive story to tell if it's going to cost him $25,000. But what we can tell for sure is that Rawlings certainly has a lot to say. However, he's probably not the only member of the Fast and Loud cast that probably has a lot to get off their chest. Through the show's long run, it was plagued with controversy, and not all of it was due to friction between Rawlings and Discovery. There was also friction between Rawlings and members of the crew. For example, Rawlings had a row with Aaron Kaufman, the show's mechanic, and the mechanic was off the show before long. After leaving, Kaufman said that he left because of personal issues with Rawlings. Interestingly, Kaufman wasn't the only person to leave the Gas Monkey garage. Tom Smith and Jordan Butler both left the show too, due to personal differences with Rawlings. In fact, Smith has gone on record to say he and Butler left after a fan with cystic fibrosis had come to the garage to take some photos with one of Rawlings' cars. Apparently, Rawlings ordered the fan to get away from his car using profanity.
Everybody knows we got fired from Gas Monkey, which isn't a good subject with me because that is the only job I've ever gotten fired from. And the reasoning I got fired from, not really a good one.
So, while we might rail against the suits at Discovery for not always being on the same page with Rawlings, it's important to note that Rawlings is far from blameless. Now that Fast and Loud is done, what's Rawlings doing now? Well, during his podcast with Joe Rogan, he mentioned that he wanted to start a podcast, and it seems like he has gotten that show on the road. The name of his new podcast is Monkey Trap, where he entertains his millions of followers on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. He also recently unveiled a $500,000 food truck in Dallas last year. The truck is pretty huge and could feed 10,000 people per day. It also comes with t-shirt cannon, so that's fun. Will we see Rawlings on TV anytime soon? Well, no one knows, but this is showbiz and you know what they say in showbiz, never ever say never.